I wanted to share with you a question that we got after one of our recent episodes. So I wanted to provide you that question or show you the question that we got. Actually, there was two of them, and then I'm going to go ahead and answer them. The first one that we got was, when I qualify for a home equity line of credit, are there any restrictions on what I can do with a new source of funds? Well, the answer to that is, generally speaking, no. I mean, when you're getting an equity loan or getting an equity line of credit, those proceeds from that loan can be used for just about any purpose. There's really no restrictions per se for how you use that money. Now, of course, you don't want to use that money for anything illegal. And one of the most common things that we were asked is, can you use that money from an equity loan or from a HELOC? Can you use that to finance the purchase of another property? Well, that's a tricky question because on the one hand, as I think I've covered on a recent episode, we talked about the fact that if you're going to be purchasing a home or maybe another home, that secured borrowed funds is an acceptable source of down payment. So mortgage lenders will readily accept that if you're going to purchase, let's say, a rental property, and you're going to take a loan out on your current home, like a HELOC, and use the proceeds of that to purchase that rental property, use the proceeds for your down payment, the lender funding the rental property loan will accept that. It's okay because you're borrowing against your primary home that secured borrowed funds. And so that is an acceptable down payment source for the purchase of that rental property. Now, that equity loan that you took out will be taken into account in terms of the monthly payment on it and included in the debt ratio on the purchase loan you're getting for that rental property. So that will be taken into account. But otherwise, that lender funding the purchase loan for the rental property has no objection to you using the HELOC as your source of the down payment for the purchase of that rental property. However, on the flip side, when the HELOC is being arranged, it's a little tricky to, in that HELOC application, tell the HELOC lender that the reason you're pulling this money out is because you're going to go buy another property. That's a little tricky. The reason is because if you just put that out there in your application, tell them that's what you're going to do, you may be asked to provide evidence of what exactly you mean in terms of, do you have a current transaction you're about to start? Are you already into escrow? That can be a little bit problematic because then that HELOC lender, if they know you're going to use that money directly to go purchase that other property, they may want to try to use that other property purchase and pull it into qualifying for the HELOC, even though that purchase isn't done yet. So in that regard, we usually try to tell folks, you want to steer clear of necessarily suggesting that you're going to use the proceeds of a HELOC or an equity loan to purchase another property. Or to the extent you're thinking about that, put some space between the two. Certainly don't open escrow on the purchase of a home, and then after you do that, hurry up and try to get a HELOC in your primary home. That could be a little bit problematic. But otherwise, there's really no restrictions on what you can use the proceeds from an equity loan. Again, whether it's a HELOC or a HE loan, you can use that money for almost any purpose. However, I did read an article here recently where a homeowner who was taking out a HELOC was taking the proceeds and sending those proceeds to buy virtual currency. And that actually triggered a SAR report. That's a strategic activity report. And the reason is because apparently some homeowners have been caught up in a scam where they've been encouraged to purchase virtual currency, and to do so by either using existing funds from other accounts or even pulling equity out of their home, such as through a HELOC or a fixed rate second, and then using those proceeds to buy more of this virtual currency. And of course, what that homeowner sadly finds out later is it's all a scam, and that money is going to be gone. So for anyone who's contemplating a HELOC to pull equity out to buy virtual currency, be careful who you're dealing with and make sure whatever that virtual currency you're purchasing is legitimate. So with that disclaimer, let's also talk about the other question that we got here this week. What obligations do I have at time of closing the loan? In other words, how much must I take? Common question. With HELOCs, in the old days, not too many years ago, we oftentimes would arrange a HELOC like for buyer of a new home, and we would oftentimes say, hey, tell you what, since we've got your package anyway, we're getting ready to close your purchase loan. Maybe after you complete that purchase, you've got some equity because you put in a large down payment. Why don't we arrange a HELOC for you? You can just put it in place, and it can be your rainy day fund. You don't have to use it right away. You don't have to draw on it right away. It can just sit there. And if you need money in an emergency, you can tap into it. So frankly, we used to do that quite a bit. Why? Because back in those days, HELOC lenders in general would not require that you take any kind of draw on that loan at the time it was closed. Those days are pretty much gone. So now if you're going to get a HELOC, there is generally going to be some minimum amount of draw at closing that you're going to have to take. With the HELOCs we arrange, at least two of the programs that we have, your minimum line of credit for HELOC has to be $50,000. And in that regard, the minimum draw for those two HELOC programs that we have is $50,000. And with one of them, you have to draw $100,000 to get the best rate on the HELOC. Now, why is that? Why is that a requirement when it wasn't before? Well, the reason is HELOC lenders figured out that in the past, homeowners would get a HELOC and it would just sit there and not get used. Well, that doesn't make any money. There's no profit for the lender in that situation. They front loaded their costs to underwrite and fund the loan, but they're not earning a yield on that loan because the homeowner chose not to use it, at least not right away. So those days are gone. HELOC lenders now happy to arrange the loan, but they don't want to arrange loans that aren't going to be used right away. So generally speaking, when you're getting a HELOC, plan on you're going to have to draw at close. In most cases, it's going to be $50,000. In some cases, to get the best rate, it's going to be $100,000. And one of the lenders we have, the minimum draw is $50,000 or 50,000 or 3/4 of the credit limit amount, whichever is whichever is higher of the two. So if you're getting a $100,000 HELOC, you can't just draw $50,000 to satisfy the lender. You got to draw $75,000. So just keep that in mind that you do have that obligation to take a minimum draw at close. Now, if you don't need all of that money after closing, then what you can do is take the portion that you don't need right away and send it back when you get your first monthly mortgage payment statement. So that's usually what we tell folks to do. Now, if you're talking about a HE loan, fixed rate second, it's kind of a non-issue because with a HE loan, it's a traditional fixed rate loan and you get all your proceeds in a lump sum at closing. And of course, it's not the type of loan instrument that you can use again, that you can draw against like a HELOC. So with a HE loan, this is not an issue to even be concerned with. This question is geared solely to a HELOC and the fact that you do have to draw some funds right away. So the lender, frankly, has an opportunity to earn a yield and make a profit on the loan. So you have to consider that's probably a reasonable stance for HELOC lenders to take. They're not in the business of just giving you a loan instrument that you're going to sit there and not use and let it just get dormant and not allow the lender to earn any yield other than the annual fee that they might charge for maintaining the account. So those are good questions that we got this week. I was happy to answer those. I hope that clears up a little bit of what your obligations are when you get a HELOC. When you do get one, be sure to plan on taking a draw when you do. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. This is the conclusion of the Mortgage Minute for this week. I'm Art Alvarez at MortgageWorks, where we do have the answers and they're on the house. So long. Take care.